It started with flashing red lights, rain, and a cry for help no one else seemed to hear. On a lonely highway outside Atlanta, a former black soldier, someone who'd spent years saving lives overseas, found himself staring at a wrecked police cruiser. Inside was a white officer, barely conscious, trapped behind the wheel as smoke curled from the hood. He didn't think twice. He ran into the storm, ignoring the voices in his head that whispered how the world had treated him before. But what came next, after he pulled her out, alive, would leave the entire police department, questioning everything they thought. They knew about loyalty, courage, and justice. Marcus Hall had lived many lives. A decorated Army medic, he'd returned home to a quieter world that didn't quite welcome him back. Too many doors had closed with polite smiles. Too many jobs had slipped away after someone noticed the color of his skin before the strength of his resume. So, he opened a small repair shop on the city's edge, helping neighbors, staying invisible. One stormy night, driving back from delivering parts to a friend, he noticed an eerie glow ahead. A single patrol car half off the road, emergency lights flickering weakly. Marcus pulled over. The rain was merciless. Inside the car, a young white policewoman fought for breath, bloodless lips trembling as she tried to radio for help. Her name tag read Officer Jenna Cole. Marcus acted on instinct. He smashed the jammed door with a tire iron, freeing her just as flames began licking at the dashboard. He carried her into the rain and performed chest compressions until she coughed weakly back to life. When paramedics arrived, they found a soaked black man kneeling beside an unconscious officer, his hands shaking but steady. They barely thanked him. Later, as flashing lights filled the night, one officer pulled him aside and said quietly, "You can go now." He did, but the next morning his face was on the news, and what followed was nothing like the gratitude he deserved. The story spread quickly. Local man saves officer from fiery crash. But the headlines never mentioned Marcus's name, just a bystander. When word reached the precinct, the reaction was complicated. Some called him a hero. Others whispered questions. A few wondered aloud why he'd been near the crash site at all. Within days, rumors twisted the truth. Some officers speculated he had caused the accident. Others that he'd exaggerated his involvement. Marcus tried to ignore it, returning to work at his small garage. But the whispers followed him. Anonymous calls, a shattered window one night, customers who stopped coming. The thanks he'd expected was replaced by suspicion. Then, a week later, a black SUV pulled into his lot. Out stepped Officer Jenna Cole, pale, fragile, but standing. Her arm was bandaged, and she carried a paper bag of food. She told him she remembered everything. She visited again the next week, then the next. They spoke little, but the silence carried warmth. Jenna had begun therapy, but what haunted her most wasn't the crash. It was the way her own department reacted. She'd overheard comments, jokes, and doubts about the man who'd saved her life. She filed a report asking the department to officially recognize Marcus. Days passed with no reply. Then came the internal leak. An officer's email thread mocking Marcus went viral. Photos of his shop appeared online, tagged with cruel remarks. His reputation was under attack. Jenna tried to defend him publicly, but the response was harsh. "You're just feeling guilty," one colleague said. "He's no hero." That was the moment she realized the system she'd sworn to protect was capable of deep blindness. And Marcus, tired but composed, told her softly, "You can't fight hate with press releases." 2 weeks later, the precinct held a small ceremony to celebrate acts of public courage. Marcus wasn't invited. The event was meant for first responders. Jenna was supposed to speak, but her request to add his name to the list had been ignored. Still, Marcus showed up quietly, standing in the back in a clean jacket, watching. As officers were called to the front, Jenna took the microphone. Her voice trembled. She began describing the night of the crash, the smoke, the rain, and the man who saved her life. She turned to the crowd and said, "He's standing right there." Dozens of heads turned. Silence swept the room. For a moment, no one moved. Then a slow, awkward applause began. Half-hearted, uncertain. Some officers clapped politely. Others looked away. Marcus nodded once, his face unreadable. He didn't want the spotlight. He wanted fairness, humanity. Jenna finished her speech and stepped down. She walked toward Marcus, tears cutting through her composure. "I'm sorry," she whispered. He shook his head gently. "You don't owe me anything," his eyes seemed to say. Then he turned and walked out, past the medals, past the cameras, past a sea of uniforms that suddenly looked smaller than their badges. The video of that moment spread online within hours. Someone in the audience had recorded it. The soldiers' quiet dignity, the awkward applause, the silence that followed. Public reaction was swift. People began asking why his name had been erased, why a hero had been treated like a suspect. News outlets finally reached out, and when Marcus was interviewed, he said only one sentence that echoed across the country. Respect shouldn't depend on the color of a uniform or the color of a man. The department released a formal apology weeks later, but Marcus never responded. He sold his small shop and moved to a neighboring town, opening a community center for veterans and youth. Officer Jenna Cole transferred as well, leaving the city where silence spoke louder than justice. Every year on the anniversary of the crash, she sent a thank you card. No police seal, no department logo, just a handwritten note. Marcus never stopped helping others, but he never returned to the precinct again. And in the end, his quiet act of humanity said more than any award could. Because sometimes, the real heroes don't wait for applause. They walk away with their dignity intact, leaving behind a question that echoes in every conscience. What kind of world forgets the man who saves it?